Good morning, everyone. I'm Anthony Kapkin, and welcome to Tips for Unlocking the Home Automation Market, a training session brought to us today by Aartech Canada. Thank you, Aartech Canada, for helping us deliver this important information. Just want to quickly go around the panel and let you know who is joining us today. So we have Jeff Barrett, we have Robert Moles, Steve Lee, and Joy MANAPUL. The way today is going to shake down is we really do want this to be an open forum. So while we do have some prepared slides, feel free to use that Q&A tab at the bottom to punch in some questions or commentary for our speakers. They are happy to pause during their slides and tackle that question. So let's make it interactive and bring that curiosity forward. I'd like to go around our panel now and just have everyone quickly introduce themselves to the audience. Jeff, let's start with you.
Well, thank you, Anthony, and thank you very much. As Anthony mentioned, my name is Jeff Barrett. I'm the business development manager here at Aartech. I won't take up too much time now, but I've been with Aartech for almost 5 years now to the day. I started on the sales side, moved to business development about 1.5 years ago now. I host the webinars, assist with the webinar and the system designs and things like that. But essentially, I'm trying to be the good tie, the liaison between sales, marketing, and ultimately our customers. So that's my role here.
Sounds like a pretty full slate there, Jeff. Let me now turn to Robert. Robert, just a few words about yourself.
Good morning. Yes, my name is Robert Moles, and I'm the owner and the president of Aartech Canada, a business I started in my basement about just over 20 years ago now. Today, we're no longer there, of course. We're a distributor of home automation, security, electrical products, AV products to integrators, contractors, resellers, and installers right across Canada. I'm also a huge tech junkie. I'm an automation lover. I've loved automation ever since I was a kid. That's what started this whole company for me. And I'm here today to share some ideas and hopefully spark some interest with the crowd that we have here today.
So your basement wasn't big enough, eh? You had to move out?
My basement was not big enough. The next place wasn't big enough. I remember very clearly the first person that worked for me left and said, I don't really see the growth. At that time, they were literally my first employee. Fast forward to today, and we've moved several times, hired many more employees, and we just continue to grow from there. So it's been a fun ride.
Excellent. Great to hear. Steve, let me turn over to you if you could say a few words.
Sure. Steve Lee. My background is as an electrician and electrical contractor. I got into home automation in the late 80s, and I sort of turned my career into a business doing home automation and specializing in that. And that's one of the key things that I wanted to talk about today was the ability for electricians to be able to take ownership of this home automation space. And that's exactly what I did. I'm an industry consultant, and I'm representing Insteon today, a company that I've worked for many years. So I look forward to the discussion.
Looking forward to the perspectives that you will bring to this discussion. And let's wrap up our introductions with Joy MANAPUL. Joy.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, everyone. Joy MANAPUL. I work for Lutron in our luxury residential department. I have been working with homeowners, custom home builders, and designers as it relates to decorative lighting, now lighting control and shades over the last 6 years.
Let's now move to Jeff, who's actually going to start with sort of opening comments, if you will, before we get to the other speakers. Jeff, over to you.
Thank you. This is pretty general. Part of my role here, I do work directly with trades, in particular electricians. So this is a bit of a paraphrase of my experience here. But ultimately, why do you as an electrician need to care about automation? I think that's kind of the key point. It used to be that you would partner with the low voltage teams out there, the low voltage installers. They don't need you nearly as much anymore. So much of the world has turned to low voltage. They're now your biggest competition. So I think that's the biggest change from what we're seeing from our end. So it's not just about revenue growth. It's about protecting the customer that you currently have already invested in. And I don't want to go too far into this. I'm going to leave this to Steve and Joy and Rob. But essentially, just kind of think what automation is. Automation isn't a Google. That's still a manual switch, Alexa, Google. But it's security. It's entertainment. It's safety, network, water, shut off, leak control, access control, and comfort. So it's different to everybody. And I'll give one simple example before I roll it over to the rest of the panel. If you've got a 75-year-old man, automation to him might be getting up in the middle of the night, triggering motion, walking down the hallway to turn on the lights in the kitchen, the hallway, and the bathroom. But that same automation network might need something completely different to their 45-year-old son, who just wants to make sure his dad is moving every 12 hours. So that motion can send a signal without motion for 12 hours. So just kind of think, don't go in and try to cookie cutter what automation means to your customer, because it's completely different to everybody. So really it's the same automation system, but completely different needs. Don't try to go in and push it. Listen to what your customer is telling you, profile them, and try to go from there. So that's where I would leave it there. And then Anthony, if you wouldn't mind, I would probably roll it to Rob from there.
Very good, Jeff. And before I do turn to Robert, I'm glad you bring up that example of the 75-year-old man versus the 45-year-old man. So we're talking about solutions that can be quite beneficial. They're not just trinkets or the next shiny thing.
100%.
Well, thank you for that intro, Jeff. Robert, let's turn it over to you.
Thanks very much. And actually, it's funny that you put that into perspective. As I get older, I keep saying, you know, the moving target of who's an older person changes as I get older. So we start talking about 75-year-old parents and 45-year-old kids. So I'm the 50-year-old kid now, and my kids are now the young ones. And anyways, I'm starting to feel older as we go forward here. But let's start a little bit and talk about what the opportunity is in the smart home market and where this fits in for us. So right now, as of 2022, 2023, we're already at about, in Canada, a $3 billion smart home market, and that's in US dollars, by the way. By 2027, we suspect it's going to be upwards of $5 to $6 billion. So it's large and it's growing. Worldwide, it's more like over $100 billion. So it's definitely worth participating in. And it doesn't just have to be about fancy custom high-end homes. That's definitely part of it. But, you know, like with most projects that you do today, smart home jobs take on all different shapes and sizes, from maybe $100 or $200 installs just to solve a quick lighting problem, and then up to tens of thousands of dollars for a more full system. And I was watching, I think it's called Smart Home Nation the other day, and they were showing off a home theater room that in its own was $100,000. And I think that was US. So, I mean, really and I think Steve is going to show a couple of different ends of the spectrum as well. So it really is a little bit of everything. And it's not only is it different to every person, but the size is different to every person. And you don't have to worry that, well, I don't know how to do a whole home today. Focus on what you can do and start small. That means everyone gets an opportunity to participate. And smart home technology is being deployed in all kinds of projects, from single family homes to smart condos, business applications, both in new builds and retrofit. And why are you at this audience in a perfect place to take advantage of that? You're already involved in all these applications. You're already doing the line voltage work, installing the hardware. So it's an amazing opportunity for you to branch out and take advantage of smart home and low voltage work as well. And this slide talks a little bit about the flip side. So today, what if you're turning down jobs because you don't feel comfortable or it's not in your wheelhouse? But on the flip side, if you aren't offering smart home and you're not doing low voltage wiring and your customers are asking for it, what happens? Now those customers have to ask someone else to do the work. And when they approach another company that does access control or does smart home or security, what happens then? And what happens if they say, oh, you know what, we have an electrician on board that does that work? And what if you end up losing that entire job because you didn't do the low voltage side of it? So we have to think about sort of the long-term picture. Things are changing. We're not just in a high voltage world anymore. And as an electrical pro, as I said before, you're already in a perfect place to take advantage of this space in the industry. Okay, next slide, please. So what is home automation? Like Jeff mentioned, it's something different to everybody. I don't know if anyone remembers the clapper. Does that ring a bell? I don't know. Maybe I'm just too old, but the fact is, it might have been hokey, and even Homer Simpson got in on the action at some point. But I noticed online, I was Google searching it, and I realized that you can still buy this device today at Walmart. So it started in 1984 and it still lives today. And it's something simple, but it was one of the earliest types of home automation that I can really remember, other than X10 and the really geeky stuff. It was just a simple way of turning on your lights. And that's one of the things about home automation. Home automation is creating convenience. Today, oftentimes when we think about smart home, we think about voice assistants. We have Alexa, Google, and Siri, and we talk to them. And frankly, they're already in many people's homes. And to be honest, actually, I love the convenience. I can't remember the number of times that I am in the kitchen with my hands wet, or I've got chicken goo and I realize I don't have all the lights on. So I just ask my assistant to turn on the lights, right? Is that home automation? It's not really true home automation, but it's definitely smart and it's definitely convenience. And it's a bit of a gateway, possibly a gateway drug, I would say. So it just skims the surface, but it gets us started. And it offers real world convenience and something that the consumer understands, something they're already using. And again, you're already installing light switches and fixtures, so why not consider making them smarter? So what is true home automation? And by the way, excellent work on the slides. You know when to change before I do. Excellent. So for me, home automation is about being a lot more automatic. It's about knowing when to turn the lights on, when to turn the lights off. It should know if the heating and air conditioning should be turned up or down automatically, because it learns your preferences. It knows if you're home or if you're away. It also, as Jeff mentioned before, it might be a little bit more complex. It may not just be turning on a light. It might be something more like a good night routine that maybe turns the lights off downstairs after a few minutes to give you time to get upstairs, while it turns on the lights into the hall, and maybe the master bedroom light on dim so that you don't stumble on the way in. And then it turns them all off a little bit later on. And that becomes a routine. Now we're getting a little smarter. It can also be something like security alarms, where instead of manually arming and disarming, you might have it automatically arm when you leave, let's say, the proximity of the house, and then disarm when you come home. And how does it know? Well, we can use occupancy sensors just like we use today in commercial applications in buildings, only these would be low voltage. We can also use geolocation based on where the phone is located. It knows if you're coming or going. And so we define an area around the house, and we say, when we leave that area, go ahead and lock the door, arm the alarm, and shut off the lights for me. Now it gets a lot smarter. We don't have to tell it to do it. It knows what to do. And then if we take it a step further, everyone's talking about AI today. So artificial intelligence, machine learning now says, okay, I realize that every day you leave at 9 a.m. and you come home at 6 p.m. and it starts to say, hey, would you like me to set up a routine for you that does these things automatically based on your schedule? And actually, I noticed just a couple of days ago that my Alexa app has that already built in. It asked me if it wanted to turn lights on at a certain time every day. So it's already starting, and certainly AI is here, in case you haven't heard.
Can I just pause for a second there, Robert,
sure.
to say that is really cool tech, like really cool.
Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point. Honestly, when I think of automation, I don't want to have to think and tell it what to do. I want it to start to know me. It's kind of a partnership. All right. Next slide. Yes, good. Okay. So what sort of things can we make smart? Probably a little bit of everything, but just to give you some ideas. So lighting is the most obvious, the most impactful, I would say. Overall, everyone turns the lights on in their house, right? So what can we do? We can create schedules, we can create routines. We mentioned earlier, we can have voice assistants that control these things. There's also a concept called scene lighting, which we'll talk a little bit more about, but basically the idea is that it groups a bunch of lights, one light or three or a whole room or a whole house full of lights together, and controls them with a single gesture or button press or what have you. So we might create a routine called cooking that turns the kitchen and the dining room lights on and maybe shuts off some of the other lights that we're not using. We might have an all lights off button at a bedroom or maybe at the front door. We might have a romance button. I'll let you decide what that's going to do. But we add convenience, and we make it all happen quickly and with a single button press. And again, you're already installing the switches, running the wires. Why not make them smart? Locks are another natural home automation target. They're literally the gateway to the home. Everyone has a lock on their door, and everyone can find value in some kind of automation around the lock, whether it's just automatically locking it at night, or maybe creating codes for family and friends and what have you. I'll talk about some other examples later on, but it's a great way to provide convenience and security, and it's a daily use that everyone will remember and talk about. Security systems and access control, these are huge. Unfortunately, crime is on the rise. Inflation, everything going on today is not making this any better. Even in my small town, I live outside the city, and we're starting to see an increase in people that are going and rummaging through vehicles when the doors aren't locked, or even stealing them in some cases. So, security systems and cameras are important. They're becoming more popular in home settings, and all of these really need wires. Right. So you may choose to partner with a security company. I know Jeff mentioned, watch out for working with a low voltage, but there's definitely applications where you want to partner with someone who might, let's say, set up and monitor the security system, but you can pull the wires. You can do much of the install yourselves as an electrical crowd. Audio and video distribution, not necessarily smart home or automation, but it's definitely part of the smart home, right? Because today, we have all kinds of TVs around the house. We have, audio players, so we're streaming cable today off of networks. We're doing Netflix, Prime Video, Disney. We've got audio with Spotify and iTunes and what have you. So, how do we get the streams to all those devices? I know Wi-Fi is, yes, possible, but is that the best way? No. Absolutely not. If you want to support so many devices and avoid buffering and stuttering and all that sort of thing, we want to have a hardwired network. And again, pulling low voltage cables. All right, next slide. A few other pieces. I think, Ring pioneered this technology, but video doorbells and intercoms, intercoms have been around forever, but the video doorbell is amazing. It lets the homeowner see who's at the door, choose whether they want to answer it to, in case it's maybe a solicitor, and they can do that from anywhere in the house. They can do it from work. They can do it anywhere around the world. So it's really added a lot of convenience to the home. Joy is going to talk a little bit more about shades and blinds as well, I believe, in her presentation, but how many windows are there in every house? So what if we start automating the shades and the blinds? There's a lot of opportunities around that side of the business as well. It's definitely a perfect addition to any automation project. And I mentioned low voltage wiring. So think about it, what uses wiring on the low voltage side? We have speakers, audio, video, cameras, intercoms, doorbells, networking, access control. These are all natural add-ons for an electrical contractor. And energy management, again, is I guess, key. As our electricity demands increase with EV chargers and all the things we're doing today and moving away from other fossil fuels, we need to be able to control excess use. We need to be able to shed loads during peak periods. We need to be able to track down energy wasters. And these are becoming a necessity, not just something nice to have. And again, for example, you're already installing breaker panels. Why not put smart breakers in the panel? Why not make your EV chargers smart? That's something we'll talk a little bit about later.
Sorry, Rob, just a 10-second add-on to that. I know we're getting close on time,
yes.
But really, Ring has done your marketing for you. The video intercoms, the market's already set up for you to go in and replace it with a better unit. Pardon, my voice is going already. So the marketing is there. Take advantage of it. They did a good job pushing it out there. It's a decent product to see who's at the door. But if you're trying to communicate, run a business or anything through that, but that they already did that marketing for you. Just go in and take it over.
For sure.
Oh, and those porch pirate videos give a lot of joy on YouTube and Facebook and the like.
Absolutely.
I don't do automation,
talk
Jeff,
about. Yeah.
But you already have automation here. You just need to know what it is.
Yes, and you can integrate that if you're using the right product.
Now, Robert, I have a question.
Sure.
Just thinking about those video doorbells, and maybe I save this question for Steve, but I'll let you decide. But I had an occasion where I had an electrician come in to rewire just a regular outdoor electrical receptacle for me, and I asked him about possibly doing a video doorbell, and is that part of his services? And he just flat out refused, said, no, I don't want to get involved in that programming, blah, blah, blah. And he just walks away from all of those things. Now, again, Robert, feel free to pass this over to Steve, or maybe Steve gets to this, but how should have that situation been handled if we're looking to get into this line of work?
Yeah, it's a good question. And what I'm finding is as again, the time being relative, as the older crowd moves forward, some of the older school electrical contractors really are not in a position, maybe they just, they're too busy, they don't want to embrace the technology. But as they pass it down to the younger generation, that seems to be where we get a lot more engagement, at least in my personal experience, or maybe the sort of the mid, again, define middle age, but sort of the not too old. And Steve can talk a little bit more about the mindset of the electrical pro, because he was in that business. And I allude to this later on, but I think part of it is not being scared. I think the reason people say no is either they're too busy or they don't know enough about it to be confident. And the fact of the matter is, really what you need is just a little bit of help from a good partner, whether it's a low voltage company initially, or you're working with a distributor like Aartech that's been doing this for 20 years with over 60 brands and just knows the business inside and out and can provide a little bit of guidance. For me, it's don't say no, it's say maybe.
And there was a question in the chat about whether we offer training. Absolutely. If you don't see it on our website, reach out to your account manager or myself or Rob directly, and we'll provide that training. And as a sales guy, I'm going to oversimplify the video intercom comment there, Anthony. It's mount a unit on the outside, drill a hole through the wall, mount a unit on the inside, and plug it into the wall. I don't understand why I wouldn't be open to a dialogue to grow my business based on that. So honestly, I don't mean to oversimplify, but it is that simple.
Very good. Very
It could
good.
be something that a junior partner in the business, that does, that kind of work can do instead of the master electrician necessarily.
100%.
Any comments on that?
It's a starting point.
Anything from Steve?
You want me to wait until my portion to add that, or do it now?
That depends how long you're going to be.
Well, let me just add this, that, yeah, this does happen quite often. I utilize this time though, and the change in technology to get some of this stuff in your own house. As an electrician, get a video doorbell, install it yourself, develop some comfort level around it. I used to do things, if a customer is willing to buy something I wanted to install, and I from a basic wiring standpoint, I felt like I was capable of doing it, but maybe I wasn't quite 100% sure. I would say, well, I'll give it a try if you don't mind. And I wouldn't even charge them for the install time, because I didn't have to buy it myself, and I could learn kind of on their dime. Obviously, it's got to be the right customer to do that with, but something simple like a video doorbell, it's 2 wires and it's low voltage, pretty easy to hook up. And the rest of it is in and out.
Exactly.
Interesting. Anyway, I've taken enough of your time. Robert, maybe you can wrap up in a minute or so that we can get to Steve's formal portion.
Okay, that's going to be a bit of a stretch. Let me see what I can do. So I'll see if I can speed talk. All right, so I'm actually going to skip the example that was there. We talked about the locks. We talked a little bit about the video doorbell. There was actually a perfect example I saw the other day where people use the video doorbell footage to prove that not that the package was delivered, but that the delivery guy had delivered it, taken a picture, and then stole it afterwards. So just to think about some creative ideas that add some value, right? We have cottages, we have remote properties where we want to adjust heating and cooling and maybe make sure doors are locked when we're away. Same thing with frequent travelers. I mentioned energy management earlier, so I won't harp on that one. And again, with EV chargers, for example, today, instead of just a dumb charger, we can actually have an EV charger that lets us know when the vehicle is charged, or can be scheduled to charge only on off-peak hours. All right, let's go to the next slide then. All right, I'll just very briefly talk about technology. The fact is that, today's session wasn't meant to be a deep dive into this sort of thing, and Steve is going to talk about Insteon, and Joy will talk about Lutron. We have some other technologies that you'll hear out there. We have Z-Wave and Zigbee, which are both wireless technologies that have been very popular. Z-Wave in particular is popular in the alarm crowd, and Zigbee we've seen in some smart buildings and that sort of thing. And Wi-Fi has become more and more prevalent with all kinds, especially in the consumer space, with everyone having a Wi-Fi network in the house and the business. It seems a natural fit to add Wi-Fi devices for smart home operation, but there's very definitely some caveats around that, and it's probably suitable for certain applications and very small consumer type use. But as a pro installer, if you're going down that path, we would definitely recommend that you reach out to us. And at the very least, we can help you with some pro tips about how to, avoid callbacks and frustrated customers. They definitely have their place, but I don't think that's the primary technology in a lot of our applications. And in the interest of brevity, I'll skip over the cloud versus local thing, but I'll just talk a little bit about a smart hub, because this is a smart hub, because this is key, I think, for me. And so what is a smart hub? All these home automation technologies, whatever they are, in many cases, they may be able to operate on their own, but in some cases they need a smart hub to set up. But more importantly, that smart hub can bring all of these devices together and can provide additional functionality. So for example, if we're doing an Insteon or a Lutron lighting installation, we may want to have a smart hub to be able to also add a Z-Wave lock or some kind of a water valve into the picture. And then additionally, that also can provide remote access for the homeowner, status updates, and maybe alerts that say, okay, you know what, I just detected a water leak, I've closed the valve, but now you know, and you might want to head home and check up on it. All right, so skip over the cloud versus local, next slide. And where do we go from here? And we may wrap this up at the end a little bit as well, but just some concepts anyways, from my opinion. So I think the first thing is to look at your market. Are you doing residential, single family home, condos, commercial? Because really each one of those has its own application, its own customer type, and its own way to dive into smart home opportunities there. And if you're not already working in smart home, I would advise you to reach out to your suppliers. Hopefully some of them offer automation products and training. I mean, Aartech, for example, has been doing this for 20 years now and knows more than I would say. We were the initial smart home company in Canada. When I started this, nobody had a clue about this technology. It was back in the days of X10. And we host regularly training sessions, both ourselves and also all of our vendors host training as well. So there's a lot of opportunity to learn there, and it's all free if you're a partner. And from there, I say, try to partner with a low voltage company if you're not comfortable, because at least that's kind of like an apprenticeship where you can learn the ropes. And then eventually, as Jeff said, you probably want to, get into doing it on your own would be my advice. And to Steve's point, put it in your house. At the very least, bench test it before you go out on site, but put it in your house, because really, if you don't know what works and what you like and what you don't like, and if you don't use it in your own home, it's very difficult to sell it and promote it. And how can you have conviction? You have to be using the technology. And then hopefully you get lucky and you find someone who asks you the question. You might be a family member, a friend, or a referral, and you say, hey, listen, like Steve says, I don't really know this all that well, but I'm definitely interested in working in this technology. How about I don't charge you for my labor? And I'll set this up for you. And I promise before I go, I'll make sure it's all working for you. Something like that. So you get the opportunity to do it. They feel comfortable. They're not going to be charged hourly for something that, should take you an hour and it takes you 8 the first time you try it. But you get your foot in the door. And like everything else in life, take action. You might get lucky where jobs fall into your lap without you trying, but I often find the luckiest people are the ones that put in the work up front.
There is a question that we received a little earlier on, but I would like to save it for the end because I would like everyone to weigh in. And it has to do with the issue of cybersecurity, which is, of course, on everyone's mind. But I don't want to pause for that here now. I'd like to hear from Steve, and I'd like to hear from Joy, and then at the end, get your thoughts on the whole cybersecurity issue and concerns. But with that, thank you, Robert. Let's now move on to Steve. Go ahead.
Welcome, everyone. Just a little placard here of some of the things that I've done. Like I mentioned earlier, electrician and electrical contractor, also a home automation contractor, and I've been with Insteon for a long time, and I currently consult for a bunch of companies that are in the home automation and technology space. So I'm going to kind of bring that to us today in my comments. I could talk openly for hours about home automation. I'm very passionate about it. So for me to keep this to 10 minutes, I'll do my best. So a little bit about Insteon. Insteon has been around since, the product has been around since 2005. It's a power line and radio frequency protocol. It means it does both. On the power line, the signal can go a mile on a piece of copper. So if I've got a number 12 wire, I need to run down to a gatehouse to be able to know if the gate's open or to be able to control the gate. And the customer is asking you to put some sort of control to be able to operate a gate or a button down at the front of their property. All of that can be done using this power line radio frequency communication. Radio frequency alone is not going to do it. And if you're going to do actual contact closure, it's got to be something then where you're going to be trenching. And I can guarantee you there's people trenching right now from a house out to a pool house or a gatehouse or another casita or some other building where they could have done that control using something like Insteon. There are light switches and outlets and mini remotes and ceiling fans, all different types of devices, micro modules, things that can test whether or not a device has been turned on. If I want to know whether my pool pump is running and have that trigger an automation function, I can embed a small device in the pool pump. And now, as soon as the pool pump turns on, the device sees it and it can send out a communication protocol. I mean, all of this stuff is really around the wheelhouse of electricians. Being an electrician myself, I really was sort of intrigued by all of this in the early years. And what I did is I just tried to stay close to the guys that were doing it. You're already out on the job. You are the ones that are more qualified, in my opinion, being able to do the electrical part of it. Electricians do motor control and process instrumentation. There's a lot of things that they do in the electrical field. So take ownership of all of that. But it's this Insteon technology, super reliable. You can create 3 ways out of a situation where you didn't have that. I've seen this dozens of times where a house gets re-roped, and what happens, you're like, oh, we forgot the travelers between these 2 boxes. You don't have to worry about it. Just keep some switches on your truck. You can put them in, you can manually link them together. You don't need a hub, you don't need internet. You can get started with all of this with very simple mechanical linking of the devices by pressing a button and pressing a button. So it's a good way to get started in home automation without even realize that you're doing it. This is just a simple graphic showing you standard control that's Wi-Fi or RF only, and you hit a wall, maybe a concrete wall, areas where it's open, you can get a line of sight signal that can maybe have a higher % reliability. But as you start going through floors and wood and carpeting and glass, that can diminish the signal or distance. It's too far. So one thing that Insteon does is it communicates on the power line. So there are really no obstacles. It's very popular in areas where they have a lot of cinder block, concrete building. It's perfect for commercial buildings where you need to get around within a building, but there's concrete and much heavier construction materials. So it has the flexibility of being able to use wireless remotes to turn things on and off, and things for like leak detectors and motion detectors, but it's got a backbone of power line that allows it to go incredible distances and very fast at those distances. Just a snapshot of some of the products. Like was mentioned, we'll talk about the security at the end of it, but one thing is you can just put these products in and you don't even have to be connected to the internet. Doesn't have to have Wi-Fi. It can be completely what we would call on the edge, where it's running without having any need for outside access. Leak detectors can control a water valve. That can be a system in and of itself that doesn't require any internet or anything to program it. If the leak detector sees water, I want my water shutting off. If a door opens, I want a chime module to chime and I want lights to turn on. You can go down the list and there's all sorts of different styles and devices to choose from, multi-button keypads. This is a perfect thing for an electrician. You go into a situation, you walk into a customer's house, they've got a single switch, and start up the conversation or listen to them where they're like, oh, I really wish I could turn on. We just bought this house and you're there to fix something else. Ask them some questions that might lead to maybe a home automation job. It's like, oh, I see you have a single switch at the front door, it turns on your porch light. Have you ever wanted to have it turn on other things? Well, yeah, that'd be great, but how can we do that now? Well, you just take out the switch, put a keypad in place. The keypad still controls the porch light, but now you've got buttons that you can link to other things. You could change out a switch across the room and have now a button that I can hit. It does the dining room. Or I can hit a button and it can do 4 or 5 things to do a pathway of lighting into the house. And when you start to paint that picture for a customer, I can guarantee you most of them are going to go, well, that would be nice. And it's it's an affordable product. And I in my own business, I used to create a composite where I said it's about $100 a device, and that includes the device, programming, and installation. And it's very easy then to go through a project and figure out what it's going to cost. Somebody wants to put 50 devices in, it's $50, or 50 devices times 100. So very easily scalable to figure out how much a project's going to cost. I mean, especially once you've done it for a while, so you really have your craft down. But it wires like a regular switch or a regular outlet. And so it's stuff that you're already doing, and it would be a shame not to take advantage of it.
Steve, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Now, is there any sort of central controller or hub that is part of this system, maybe located in the panel board or somewhere else in the house?
You can have that if you want remote access and you want something that maybe is setting off timed events. There is a hub, and there's multiple companies that sell hubs that work with a lot of different technologies. There are companies that I consult for, and all of them have an ecosystem around Insteon and even Lutron. They all can work together, and that's the cool thing about it. Even though I'm here talking about Insteon, I could talk about a dozen other companies that all of their products work together. I'll give you one example. One company I consult for has a camera AI system. That camera system can talk to a controller that talks to Insteon. So now if a camera sees a person, I'd like the lights to turn on if it's after sunset. And it's very accurate. It's not just motion, it's now accuracy. This seems silly, but I have it when my system sees my dog go outside. I have the outside lights go on for him at night. Seems ridiculous. He can probably see at night, but I just like the lights to go on. And so it's kind of fun, but there's a tremendous amount of things that you can do with this. I've done projects where I've done security levels where if there's been anybody on my property in the last 15 minutes, I want a Philips Hue bulb to turn red. Now, when I drive up and I look up at the eaves of my garage and I see it's glowing red, I'm like, hey, somebody's on the property. I might not open the garage door and pull in. So home automation is such a large story to tell, but you can start small and you can grow from there. And so Insteon's a great product to start without having to even get into the internet and a phone and programming. You can get started right away.
Very cool. Very cool. Sorry, I interrupted you, Steve. Please go on.
That's okay. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about some projects. I've done projects all over the world. When I was doing training sessions for the company, I used to go literally to every state doing trainings. Been up to visit Robert a few times and do trainings up there. We've got another one, I think, planned after summer. But in that, I've done all sorts of stuff using the Insteon protocol. And it's one of those products that just was sort of organic. There were people that probably wanted to keep it to themselves. So there were a lot of users out there, but not a lot of public advertising about it. Here's an example of a project. This was something where it was a new remodel on a house, and they missed three-ways in 3 different locations where they needed 3-ways going from the master bedroom to the end of the hallway. They had the switches, and they each had their own individual light, but they wanted them to act as a 3-way, so it turned on both lights and they could turn them off. So I was contacted, went out there. This was just simply installing 6 switches to create a 3-way between those locations. And I physically linked them together. Very quick install, nice profit margin, and I was out. Imagine if they had to tear open the walls and put those traveler wires in between the switches and what that would have taken. And I can guarantee you a lot of electricians were going, well, we're going to have to do this. And that price tag was pretty high. Now you can get in and out very quick, product you easily stock on your truck, and it can solve those problems for you. Now, this is an example, and I have an endless amount of examples of projects that I've done, but this was a unique one. This was on the Jurassic Park property in Kauai. And when I went, I was called out. This was through the lighting contractor, the lighting wholesaler there, who I had a relationship with, and we were selling our products through. I ended up going to Hawaii quite a few times for some large projects to help them out with it. And this was one that it's a guy who's rather philanthropic. He has a resort that he's created that's all off grid, and there's bungalows and large meeting hall areas and all sorts of cool animals. And he brings in underprivileged kids to come in and spend a week there. But it's all controlled by Insteon and all off grid. But just a beautiful property. I thought it was worth bringing up. But when I first walked on it and I'm walking around, it was like, these are scenes from within the movie. It was really cool, sort of backdrop to just a day in an Insteon installer's, career. And this technology can bring you to all sorts of homes and all sorts of projects. The British Embassy was another one. We had a dealer who decided he was a landscape contractor, and he decided he was going to do the British Embassy in Washington, D.C. And it got a little out of hand for him, a little big. And so he called, and I flew out and I spent a day with him, and we got it back in line. I mean, we had hundreds of devices that were being worked on. And communicating through 7 different buildings. So it was quite a project, but very fun.
Now, Steve, should we include a disclaimer that the use of Insteon products may or may not include a trip to Hawaii?
Yeah, it very well may include a trip to Hawaii. I've done probably a dozen related to Insteon, and this wasn't because, other than one, it wasn't because I worked for Insteon. I also had a business doing this, and I had a wholesaler that reached out to me, because of that. I sort of had a little bit of a notoriety as somebody who knew this stuff pretty well and was able to make a career out of it. And
Steve,
what's that?
Next time you go to Hawaii, let me know. I'll bring the maple syrup.
I'm going in September, and I'm going in December, and Excellent. I'll probably be doing a project during one of those trips.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
All right. So this one, this is one that could take a whole webinar itself to talk about, but just very briefly, 1,800 devices. So I'm showing you the scalability of it also. There's a lot of technologies that will fall short when you start getting to this size, or the cost of it is going to be astronomical. But this was all Insteon. It's it's listed at 21,000. It's probably closer to 27 because there's some hidden areas underground. But huge house. And a long backstory of how I got to be involved with this house. But anyhow, there's the unique thing about it is the switches are all hidden, and we have little touch plate things that are around the house. And we're using something called an IO link from Insteon that senses when you touch it, and then it turns on scenes for the area. The homeowner didn't want the house to have somebody go, oh, I have that in my 1,000-square-foot apartment, or he wanted it to be sort of timeless. And an incredible home, largest personal property ever acquired or built in Aspen. And there's now a sister house next to it that also has Insteon that has an equal amount of devices. All right, i3 product line. So I'll just quickly go over this. This is new products for Insteon, referred to as i3. We have a dial dimmer, and this might seem like it's a little retro, but it's actually pretty cool. Simple push will turn on a scene, which could be every device in your house, or it could just simply turn on the load itself. And then you get that intuitive dimming, and it's a really clean looking device. And one of the nice things about this also is both of the paddle and the dial dimmers have relays and dimmers built in. You can make them whatever you want. And then over to the right is a 4-button keypad, and you can custom etch the buttons as well. Over on the left is a dual controlled outlet. And this just adds to the existing line that's already there for Insteon. So just sort of a graphic here showing you that I can have the bottom button can control the load that dial dimmer is connected to. I can have the top button control the switch on the top left. I can have the middle buttons controlling each of the outlets on the right. I can have a motion detector controlling that top outlet as well. I can do all of that, and I don't have to have a phone, a hub, a laptop, or any of that. Now, there are really cool controllers that you can add all this stuff in and be able to do incredible stuff. But so you don't feel like you have to take that big leap. You can easily go from installing the products manually linking them. And that's simply done by touching the button that you want. Hold the little set button down at the bottom of the bottom paddle, hold it in for 3 seconds, go to whatever switch or device you want to control and hold its set button for 3 seconds. And now you've got a link between those two devices. It's that simple. This was built for electricians to be able to do that, especially for the entry level aspect of it. And I guarantee once you start doing it, you're going to want to know more and be able to do more. And that's really going to open up, I think, the thing of like, okay, well, but now they want timed events to it. Well, you've already put in all the stuff. You should just own this and don't give that market share away, because what comes with this is a ton of other stuff that this all works with. And you can start grabbing that market share as well.
Excellent, Steve. I'll stop you there, and I think that's probably a great place to stop you. Basically, don't let someone else take market share. But I do want to keep us moving along to make sure that we hear from Joy.
Thank you, Anthony.
And also hopefully have a couple minutes at the end for questions, especially that cybersecurity one. So thank you, Steve. Please take it away, Joy.
Wonderful. So again, a lot of great insights that have already been shared as to why this is a great opportunity for you, and industry insights as to why now. If we can take a step back, we have to acknowledge that now more than ever, the home has become more important for you, for me, for that client of yours. And for a variety of reasons, we all know we've spent an inordinate amount of time these past 3 years being at home, so we can speak to that a lot more than we have ever been, which means that makes the conversation about improving their space and making it more enjoyable and livable, that conversation has never been easier. So just to add to the fact that the industry, as Rob mentioned, it's a $3 billion industry for home automation in Canada. It's also as simple as we've spent a lot of time at home and we want to make it better. And whether you're working from home, whether you want to spend more outdoor living and the safety and security, or maybe it's a vacation home, maybe it's a rental property, maybe it's an income property. Lots of variety of reasons as to why the conversation about investing or continuing to invest in their home has never been easier. Part of that conversation that you can now add is the idea of automated shades. It's a new technology that, again, has never been easier to talk about. If I can share some insights as to where Lutron is today as it relates to our automated shade business, it will actually show you, if we can go to the next slide. So Lutron, who invented the dimmer back in 1961 for residential use, actually has almost half of our business today in automated shades. Our founder and the engineers at Lutron truly believe that to be able to fully control lighting in any space, we have to be able to not only control artificial light, but the biggest light source of all, which is your daylight. And again, Robert alluded to earlier, how many average number of windows is in a home? So think of that as every window to us is an opportunity. Every window for you is an opportunity. That number today is 17. So think about that additional revenue addition that you can have when you can have these conversations. You know, how can shades really change your business? How can you supplement? We also know that it's harder to get a new customer. And if you already have the relationship, if you've already earned their trust, you owe it to yourself to try and maximize what opportunity, but more importantly, the solutions that you can offer to your homeowner. As part of an industry insight that we discovered with custom integrators last year, this is a North American figure, but we discovered that 31% of residential projects contained at least one motorized shade. Again, this conversation has never been easier. Apart from the lengthy time that we all spent indoors, in Canada, Health Canada also passed a cord regulation that prohibits any cord longer than 8 inches to be in window coverings, sadly, because of a fatal accident. So again, think about the solutions that you can offer and situations that your homeowners or clients are facing. As part of another industry insight, again, I'm trying to really hit home the opportunity that's presented in front of us today. The average number of shades in a residential project last year was 10. And the median price for each of that shade was $1,600 USD. So if you think about potentially adding $16,000 of revenue to an existing project, instead of trying to meet with a new client, trying to meet with a new builder, trying to build those relationships, it's a lot harder. And once again, if you're already presenting or you already have their ear and their trust, it's really about maximizing all the solutions that you're able to offer. So your homeowner is going to put something on the window, regardless. They're not leaving it blank. And there's a lot of homeowners that may be working with designers or someone who's just really interested in, once again, improving their living space because of all the things that we do in our space. So why would a homeowner invest in custom shades, let's say? Here's, you're looking at a variety of applications where Lutron automated shades are in place, but maybe that homeowner is interested in sun protection. They've invested a lot of money on that custom flooring. Perhaps it's the rug, perhaps it's the upholstery, perhaps it's the millwork. Sun protection is protecting their investment, and having Lutron shades will optimize the UV protection as all those shades are moving in unison. Of course, there's privacy. Again, we talked a lot about security concerns. So privacy, perhaps it's a window facing right into the sidewalk. So that's an obvious reason to do it. Insulation is another big one. Wellness is also another huge one. A lot of designers are designing space that are geared towards maximizing and enhancing the wellness aspect, bringing a lot of that circadian rhythm back into that space, because again, we all understand now more than ever the power that it does. We truly, again, as Canadians, do not get enough sunlight. So having the ability to bring that into your space is an excellent conversation and a solution that you're positioned to provide. And then, of course, last but not the least is for aesthetic and decorative purposes, right? So these are reasons why a homeowner would want to invest in their window coverings, but adding Lutron automated shades makes that easier, more intuitive, and the path of least resistance. The reality is there's going to be a certain level of investment regardless from the homeowner on what they put on the window. You are in a position to talk to them about a solution that touches on these reasons, maybe not all, but certainly one or two that will be unique to that client, and adding the convenience of automation and putting a system behind it is really where you can impact that lifestyle change. Next slide. So now that I've all convinced you that automated shades is the way to go, why Lutron shades? There's really 3 points that I want to hit. And I would love to talk to you more about all the technology and the innovation behind it, but it really boils down to 3 things. Lutron is about innovation, quality, and service. When I talk about innovation, we put out the first quiet electronic drive in the market 20 years ago, and we have been perfecting it ever since. We have developed our RF wireless technology for many decades now, and it's in hospitals, government buildings. So again, really critical situations where zero interference can happen. The precise movement of the shades, as I mentioned on the previous slide. And again, we have industry-leading battery performance because we understand that not every situation is presented where you could pull out wires. The service aspect, we have 24/7 tech support. You're on the job site, you need to call somebody. There's someone on the other line that can help walk you through it. Last but not the least is the quality aspect. every single shade that leaves our factory is 100% end of the line tested by a person. So somebody has opened up that shade and somebody has looked at it before putting it into a box and have set the limit to ensure that it's going to arrive to you, or at least it's packaged, that it's going to be in that quality that you expect and that your homeowner expects. If we could just breeze through the next couple of slides, please, Alex. I mean, a lot of home automation has been mentioned. A lot has been shared in terms of insights, industry insights. It's really about, you know, having certain components of smart devices that your homeowner feels is valuable to them. But it's when you put a system behind it where you could add scheduling, where you could integrate with that security aspect that many of the speakers have talked about. It's that system that really makes it more enhancing in terms of their lifestyle, and it's what makes sense to them. Because automation for me and what's convenient for me, it's going to be different to the next person. Next couple of slides again, please, Alex. So again, the growth here, we've already touched upon. Many others have already talked about building their smart stories. If you can just load up a few of the images so I can speak to some of them. So maybe it's a young family where it's about that path of light so they can attend to a newborn without fully waking them up. Maybe it's a young couple that's entertaining and they want to be able to set that mood conveniently, where the shades lower, the lights dim, the sound or the Sonos turns on. Maybe again, it's about that security aspect. Maybe you want the lights fully on as you enter that space fully lit with those security concerns. Next slide, please. So there's many, many stories and many reasons why somebody would have their own smart home story. And it's really important that you, of course, as you get to know your clients, different things are going to resonate with them. This is not about all of them. You're not checking off all the boxes, but at the end of the day, something about their current situation and their current lifestyle and future-proofing an investment that they're making with you or with that property is going to resonate with them. And I just want to end it with, again, I've already touched on total home control, and then just want to end it with a few aesthetics that homeowner is going to interact with. So this is the Diva Caseta. It's part of the new smart home collection within the Caseta line. This is a dimmer that I know most of you know and love, and so do the homeowners, now part of the Caseta. And of course, we also have Radio Raw 3, which is the next slide that shows you some of the various aesthetics that, again, that homeowner is going to interact with. Next slide, please. Because aesthetic is obviously important, it's what your homeowner is going to touch and see and interact with on a daily basis. It's available in 24 colors. So if that's something they want to match with their backsplash, or if it's something that they just want to blend in, that option lives with them. Again, these are fun conversations you can have, because at the end of the day, it is an investment that they're making, but these are solutions that you can offer. And last but not the least, just to hit home a lot of the points that the panelists have spoken to, it really is, it could be a standalone, it could be that one shade controlled by a remote for that homeowner, or it could be a part of a whole system, depending on what resonates with them and what's important to them. But at the end of the day, these are solutions that you're in a position to offer. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for that, Joy. And I'm also thinking back to one of your earlier slides where people might use shading systems for energy efficiency. I know that's something I should be looking into. My house and where my bedrooms are, they're south facing. And when the weather gets really hot, that's where I need shading the most so that my AC doesn't have to work too hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, property management companies in particular have really blown up with that. That was one of our biggest growths last year. Airbnb, things like that. Automation control, when the thermostat goes up, why is the window open if the thermostat's being turned up? And the same thing, you've got a southeast or southwest facing room that's going to get beat with sun all afternoon. You definitely want to be able to control that.
Excellent.
Or you could be on a webinar and that glare is just not working for you.
Perfect.
And, you know, being able to press that button to really help control it. Again, different situations, different applications that resonates with that homeowner.
Hey, what
And
a
if I
what a
could
way
add
to
one
bring in a
real,
real world example there, Joy. Well done.
and if I could add one little sales touch to that. So Joy touched on the 48% market for the shades. I mean, I heard the number in 2021 that was like closing in on $600 million. That's the number that I fixated on. And in terms of being electricians, you're already controlling the lighting. So again, just make the assumption that they should be automating it. So just roll into this stuff. Don't say, do you want automation? I'm here installing lighting. What would you like me to make the lighting do? Just roll that way.
Right, have those conversations. Let me now get to that question that I had set aside for the very end. We're just over time, so we'll just kind of tackle this question last, and then of course we've got the URL for Aartech Canada there at the bottom right of your screen, aartechpro.ca, and you can follow up with Robert and Jeff afterward. But let's tackle this important cybersecurity question to sort of close us out. So earlier on, somebody asked, how do we deal with cybersecurity concerns around connected home automation technologies? It is a real concern to many users. So maybe Joy, because we closed out with you, maybe I'll have you give your cybersecurity take first.
I think it's it's certainly a double-edged sword, right? To be able to say that we integrate well with other players, I can understand the concern where that means you're opening it up to other players in the market. Speaking for Lutron, we have, because again, as an engineering company that's been doing this for 4 decades or more, it goes down to educating yourselves and your homeowner as to what partners you want to align with that you know or can research has put in a lot of security measures and innovations and testing that can attest to that. On the integration side of things, you can also evaluate what partners you want to allow as part of your network. Again, there's additional research that I would implore you or that homeowner who's concerned about it, that research is available. One perfect example, a lot of our homeowners are asking about Josh AI more so than Apple Home or Google, just because with Josh, there's a membership and it seems as though it's more stringent in terms of what data passes through them. So that's where I would start with what brands or what companies already have that testing in place and the innovation and technology behind protecting your information and customer data. One last thing, we also, as a test that we do internally, we have a dedicated team of people that routinely try to hack our own system, just so that we can guarantee that cloud protection for all of our millions of users.
Interesting. So you go out of your way to try to break it. Well done. Well done. Now, Robert, because Joy had touched on trusted partners, I think logically I should move to you next as representing and being knowledgeable of a few brands. What's your take on the whole cybersecurity front and how to address those concerns?
This is actually a huge topic that in and of itself could easily take an hour webinar. And actually, I think it's probably a great topic and maybe one that we'll even address at some point. But cybersecurity is a concern everywhere. I think it feels like once a week, some company has been hacked, some data has been leaked, something's on the dark web. And so for me, I think it's something that we should be addressing with the customer. We can't hide under a rock. We should welcome the conversation, number one. Number two, I think it's partly about the partners, making sure you're dealing with legitimate and ideally local, meaning North American partners, where we have some control of where the cloud is, what the cloud is, versus, I'll just say, other geographies where it may be security might be more of an afterthought. We've seen many incidents already. And in fact, for example, doorbells have been hacked, but have they been hacked, or was it just poor password security? So in many cases, it's about looking inwards as well. So I think we deal with it from a level perspective. What I mean by that is, do we want, to Steve's his point, if someone doesn't want or doesn't need cloud and everything else, then we do it all local. We put in a lighting control system and we do everything locally with zero cloud, no internet connection. We don't have to have the cloud to automate, first of all. Second of all, when we do, we look at different levels of security. So, we may have one level of security where we're concerned about our lights, but, at the end of the day, if someone turns our lights off and on and has fun with us, that's really not that big a deal, but it might be a big deal if they can unlock our door. So the door and the locks and the security system would require a higher level of security than, let's say, the lighting controls. And when we're providing things like remote access, we start talking about, do we do cloud versus do we set up our own, I don't want to get too technical here, but do we set up VPNs or do we set up something that's a little bit more secure? Back in the day, we used to set up cameras and everyone would just do this thing called port forwarding because that was the easiest way to do it. And then we all realized that just open a huge attack surface into the home network. And so I never recommend that we do that anymore. So again, working with a partner that understands the security of IoT products and devices and what have you is critical in how we set up, how we look at our Wi-Fi. Everything is a vector. Have you set up your Wi-Fi with a password of 1234? Because you just let, that lets everyone into your house. And how many of you are guilty of this? I guarantee many. So yeah, it's a huge topic and something that I think we just address head on, and all of our partners have a mind for security. We all have a mind for security, and none of us are perfect. So we're kind of, I think we're getting better as we go.
I like that sentiment that you said right at the beginning, try not to sweep it under the rug, or I think you said rock, but, to have those conversations, and it's, deal with trusted suppliers, and also, make sure where passwords are involved, that they aren't 1234, or in the case of some people I know, admin is the password that they use.
Password.
Steve, do you have anything to add to Robert and Joy's take on cybersecurity?
I think a lot of that was already hit. To Robert's point, that's what started a lot of this. I mean, everybody remembers, or maybe you remember the report of somebody who had hacked into a baby cam and was saying things to the parents' young child. And the reality was that it was a default password that they logged in. So can you even say it was hacked? It's like you left the front door open and they just walked in. So there's a certain amount of onus that it takes on the part of an individual to make sure you have, good passwords and good security on that level. What happens in a lot of cases, though, with these technologies is they'll use something where they'll create an outbound socket and then they tunnel in the same socket. And if you don't have the credentials, there's no open ports. But more and more the technologies are leveraging that type of protocol to not have to do the port forwarding and not have to open anything in your router that possibly could expose it to the outside world. And also to Robert's point that you can do a lot of this stuff and just keep it completely off the grid. Plenty of houses that we've done, they have a vacation house, it's on solar, they have no internet, and they just want lighting control. And so, yeah, all of that can be done. Somebody did ask a question about building automation system and can it integrate? Yeah, there's a lot of controllers out there that have web APIs that can integrate into larger building automation systems. And we work with some of them ourselves, on a daily basis.
Very good.
Another one that's up and coming, just to mention real quickly too, is OpenADR. So energy management. So this is very definitely something that can be integrated into energy management systems as well.
Very good.
Doing a bunch of pilots right now for Southern California Edison down here using a universal devices gateway and different protocols, E-Wave devices, Insteon devices for automatic demand response.
And let me now turn to Jeff. Do you want to take us out with this cybersecurity, or has everyone already covered it to your liking?
I think everybody's covered it. Honestly, they can speak to a higher level than I can. I think I would speak directly to what you're going to hear from the customer is a lot of this is the paranoia that's been created in the marketplace that Steve kind of alluded to. So is most of this going to affect your end user really in their day-to-day life if the network is set up properly, to Rob's point? No. And a lot of this is just, it blows up on the internet and we see all the footage and we hear what could happen. It's a 1 in a million things if it's done right. My previous employer was just got hacked. I just got a letter saying all my credentials have now been potentially at risk. I mean, who thinks about my previous employer? So there's only so much we can do. I think we have to curb a little bit of that and do our best diligence to just kind of stay on top of it. But I think the password point is the key. There's a movie out there literally about this right now on Netflix that talks about this, and they make fun of it, yet we all still continue to do it. So honestly, that's the biggest thing. A lot of it is just a little bit overblown at the same time for the average user.
No, fair point, fair point. And it happens all over the place to big companies, small companies, hospitals, government. We shouldn't be too worried about it specifically happening in the home automation space. So I'm glad, and we should have the courage to have those conversations. Anyway, I want to wrap it up there and thank all of you for joining us today to talk about and share your tips for unlocking the home automation market. If there's any primary takeaway, it's you can do this. You're an electrical contractor, electrician, you are well positioned. It'll come to you, even if you have to play with it a little bit, but it will come to you. And why give that work to somebody else? So thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Joy, for lending your experience and expertise to this conversation. Especially big thank you to Aartech Canada for sponsoring this training session and providing all these examples of where to take your business to the next level. And of course, thanks to all of you in our audience who attended today and will watch the recording later on. I hope this has been insightful and will help propel your business forward in the home automation space. Thanks for joining us today.